Hello, everyone. Jim Coventry from Rotowire here with the Week 6 must-start fantasy football players. Number 5, quarterback, Geno Smith. I'm only going to do one quarterback here. 2 or more touchdowns in each of his last 3 games. He has 320 yards in 2 of his last 3 games. Why is Geno Smith doing so well? Well, basically, he is running Shane Waldron's offense as it was intended to be run. There are weapons there. It's a timing-based offense. And Geno Smith is going through his progressions. He's a cerebral quarterback that is playing quarterback at a high level. No, he doesn't have the elite top level arm strength, but Geno Smith is an NFL quarterback who understands and he's bought into Waldron's system. Now, have there been easy matchups? Yes. Will there be teams that can expose and limit some of what Geno Smith is doing? Yes. The offense that Waldron runs is nothing groundbreaking, comes from the Sean McVay tree. But nonetheless, when you have Tyler Lockett and you have DK Metcalf and you have functional tight ends and a decent running game, the offensive line, yeah, it's a work in progress. They got 2 rookies at the tackles. They're working on things there. But nonetheless, Geno Smith right now, obviously he's not a top 10 fantasy option. But if you've got a struggling quarterback like Matthew Stafford or Russell Wilson, Geno Smith is somebody you definitely could say, you know what, I'd rather start Geno right now. All right. Point number 4, the tight ends. David Njoku, at least 73 yards in each of his last 3 games, and he scored once during that time. You know, we go into the season and we always worry that when a tight end has a good game, they're, going to fall back down. This is 3 straight good games. So what I see is he is the second option in the passing game. The first option has changed in weeks. 3 of the weeks has been Amari Cooper as the number 1 option. 1 week, it was Donovan Peoples-Jones. And then there was a game where there really wasn't a dominant alpha. But David Njoku has been like that second option in the passing game. And I don't know that's going away. His ability in the middle of the field, he's a seam stretching tight end. And that is what is going to work with the play action game and with Jacoby Brissett. Now, I don't know what will happen when that other quarterback comes off a suspension down the road. But nonetheless, it's not like Njoku isn't going to be weaponized there. He has a unique skill, not unique, a strong skill set. As I mentioned earlier, he can bust the seam, and that's huge. And then obviously you're starting Dallas Goedert. I mean, you don't need me to tell you that, but I wanted to point out just some things about Dallas Goedert. He has 72 or more yards in 3 of his last 4 games, and he's picking up where he left off last season. It was roughly 4 of his last 5 games last year that he was putting up similar yardage totals, and he's doing it without the benefit of heavy targets. I mean, he has a 6, a 4, a 6, and then a 9 target game, but he's getting it done on less targets because defenses have so many other things to worry about. Goddard is somebody taking screen passes and finding open field and down the side of the field to add up chunks of yardage to that. He's in a great situation. He's getting targets each week. And I know you don't need me to tell you to start Dallas Goedert, but I just want you to realize how good he has been since late last season and how good he continues to be right now. And then, of course, Tyler Higbee's another one. You don't need me to tell you to start him, but this isn't going away anytime soon. He has at least 9 targets and 7 catches in 3 of his last 4 games, at least 46 yards in each of his last 4. So what we're seeing here is the offensive line, we know with the Rams, is terrible. Matthew Stafford is under heavy duress. Matthew Stafford has to go to what he knows, and that is Cooper Kupp, and it's Tyler Higbee. And they are winning in their areas of the field. Obviously, Kupp wins anywhere he wants to go, but Tyler Higbee's going to continue to see this target volume. The Rams defense is not great this year. They're going to have to score points, and Higbee will continue to be part of that. So he is not a flash in the pan here. And then here's what I want to point about Zach Ertz. And again, we know you're starting Zach Ertz unless you have another dynamic option to go along with him. And he has seen at least 10 targets in 3 of his last 4 games. But I do think he is a player that you consider selling right now. And here's why. So Zach Ertz, he's going to get open in the short area of the field. Doesn't give you a lot after the catch unless there's a scheme play where there's a lot of yardage there. But when DeAndre Hopkins comes back, I have to think that Ertz is going to lose some targets because Marquise Brown's getting double-digit targets, and you would think Hopkins is going to command double-digit targets. Rondale Moore with his explosiveness is beginning to become a thing. He had 8 targets last week. I think some of those targets come at the expense of Ertz because Ertz has the least playmaking ability of the 4 targets. All right, let's go to the wide receiver. So point number 3, the starts of the week, wide receivers. So when people drafted Tyler Lockett, he was typically going around pick 100. Some leagues he fell beyond that. And wow, I just didn't see this coming. He played 3 games, Tyler Lockett did, with Geno Smith last year. 2 games were complete bust, did nothing. And then there was a game against Jacksonville, who was terrible, and the entire team went off, and Lockett had a big game. So I was saying, well, isn't really going to work. Well, we talked about Geno Smith in the beginning segment of this show. Well, Tyler Lockett in his last 4 games, he has his targets 11, 11, 8, and 6. His yards, at least 76 yards in all 4 games, 2 of those over 100. He scored a pair of touchdowns. I mean, he is a high-end fantasy football starter right now. And, I mentioned earlier, there are going to be defenses they're going to run into. There could be some problems. But, I mean, right now, if you're not counting on Tyler Lockett as a wide receiver too, you're underestimating the situation. That's a long stretch for him of 4 games to put together that kind of production. And then I mentioned Rondale Moore earlier. He's played at least 86% of the snaps in each game since 2 games back. And welcome those who are here. I'll answer your questions at the end. And so anyway, back to Rondale Moore with that 86% or more snap share. He caught 7 passes for 68 yards on 8 targets last week. Now, when we look back to his rookie season last year, he had 2 really good games to start the season. And then Cliff Kingsbury got really conservative in how they used Rondale Moore. And basically his production just shriveled up. And right now, Rondale Moore, he profiles to be a very, very explosive NFL player. And, maybe the 68 yards wasn't any great shakes. It's only like 9 yards a catch. But again, when DeAndre Hopkins comes back, the defenses are going to be very concerned with Hopkins and Marquise Brown. I think that's going to open up a lot of room for the explosive Rondale Moore. So he is definitely a buy, a player you can start in a PPR league right now if you need him. And if he's on your waiver wire, he should not be there much longer. And then the next wide receiver, Nico Collins, he was playing about 2/3 of the snaps for the first few games of the season, but now he's up to 80% in the last 2 games. And I know he has a 41-yard game in the last 4, but his other games, 58, 82, and 65. Now he hasn't scored a touchdown. There aren't a lot of touchdowns being scored in Houston these days, but nonetheless, when you're averaging like 55 roughly yards over a 4-game period, and he's a second-year player, and he's already shown the ability to elevate and win contested catches, Nico Collins is a player that is on the upward trajectory of his career. And then the next receiver is Alec Pierce. He's at least 61 yards in 3 straight games. He's averaging 7 targets. Now, he is still way behind in snaps to his teammate Paris Campbell, but those snaps will eventually go up for Pierce. But Pierce has been a real thing with Matt Ryan, and I don't see that going away anytime soon. So get him in your lineup, keep him in your lineup. Of course, there'll be the occasional bad game. All of our players this year are seeing that. But Alec Pierce looks like he's here to stay. And then, hey, just keep patting Jacoby Myers on the back. When that dude's on the field, he's producing. He has at least 95 yards in each of his last 2 games. He's done it with different quarterbacks. And we've seen it. In New England, their defense, they had a great game and they shut out the Lions last week. But in most games, they're going to have to score. They will trail frequently. And their other receivers, they're just all kinds of issues. And Myers is the steadying force that they're always able to go to. So you continue to have confidence with him in your weekly lineups. And then Allen Lazard, slow start in the first game or 2, but he scored in 3 of his last 4 games. And in the game he didn't score, he posted 116 yards. So he is getting it done for fantasy. And he's seen 22 targets over his last 3 games. And we really like that. So Allen Lazard is popping up a bit here as well. And then Marquez Valdes-Scantling, quietly between 48 and 90 yards in his last 3 games, targets between 5 and 8. He is not just a situational deep threat. He's seeing targets at the intermediate area a little bit more. And I do think that's been very useful. But Marquez Valdes-Scantling is settling in as a player who is productive and can be used in fantasy labs. Again, knowing that, you have a reasonable floor and not a crazy ceiling. And tomorrow we'll talk about Juju Smith-Schuster, but he's been the disappointment. But Valdes-Scantling has been just fine. All right, number 2 is going to be the running backs. So these are the running backs that are coming out. Travis Etienne, now he's played slightly more snaps than James Robinson in each of the last 2 games, and he has 1 more touch than Robinson during that time. Now, Etienne had 5 targets and 113 yards last week. It was basically, a little breakout game. It wasn't a huge breakout, but it was a breakout game. Robinson only had 39 yards on 12 touches. This could be the beginning of the transition over to Etienne. Robinson's been very good, but look, they invested a first-round pick in Etienne, and he's showing that he is the real deal. And at some point, you've got to put that star on the field, right? And then keep talking about him, Raheem Mostert. History shows he can't do this for long. Ride the wave while you can. In the last 4 games, here are his touches: 14, 8, 17, and 18. As I keep saying, he's never had more than 137 touches in a season. Aside from that season, you take the rest of his career carries, 142 in the rest of his career. He is on pace to shatter that. He's over 30 years old again, and he's returning kicks, taking hits there as well. So this is not very good right now because you ride it while you can. You start Mostert every week. Understand, history shows it will not last. Now, here's the little nugget I'm going to throw in there. Myles Gaskin had more touches and more snaps than Chase Edmonds. It may be possible that he may be supplanting Edmonds. It's a 1-game sample, but Edmonds has been trending down and does not look really good in that offense. So if you're doing a waiver ad in a deeper league, like I said, with the expectation that it's going to be hard for Mostert to maintain his workload, Gaskin may be the guy to target. He should be free in a lot of leagues. All right, Jeff Wilson, over 100 yards in 3 of his last 4 games, scrimmage yards. And in the 74-yard game, he scored a touchdown. So he has been money. We're probably less than a month till we see Elijah Mitchell back. I don't think that Wilson is going to, trump out Mitchell. Mitchell has much more explosiveness, but Wilson should have a role. And it looks like he was going to have a role in week 1 too. So I think when this shakes out, Wilson may have flex level value, and then Elijah Mitchell, if he stays healthy, should be a running back too. All right. Next player, Dameon Pierce, scored in 3 straight games. In his last 4 games, here are his total yardage: 77, 101, 139, and 113. 11 targets over the last 2 games. I didn't think he's going to be used as a receiver, but right now, he is the real deal. He is a very strong top 15 running back, and I don't think they're going away from him anytime soon. And the Texans, I'll use the word, they're plucky. That's a good word to use, plucky. I like that. And they hang in games, so it's not like they're getting blown out by anybody, so he'll have a role. Now, another one, Alexander Mattison. Normally, when we would draft him in fantasy, it was at the expectation he'll see 1 to 4 touches a game, and that might be the most of it. And then if, of course, Dalvin Cook misses time, then Mattison gets in the lineup and he does well. This year, he's playing almost 40% of the snaps. His touches 5, 8, 4, and 12. He could be on the flex map because he's scored touchdowns. He's been used in the red zone. So Mattison, especially with the bye weeks coming, could be now he may be rostered in most leagues, but if he's not, he's somebody you can consider. And if he sits on your bench, you may want to start playing him if you need a flex or a bye week help. All right, Joshua Kelly, 12 touches for 72 yards and a touchdown last week. Sony Michel, 1 carry and for 0 yards. Now, the snap breakdown, Kelly played 38% to 3% for Michelle. It had been a pretty much equal 25%. And 1 week sample, but Kelly played well. And for right now, I think that he will have an opportunity to hold that role. And then the last running back is Rachaad White. His snap percentage is just under 40% in the last 2 games, 8 touches in each of those games, yards 56 and 42. He scored a touchdown, 9 targets over 2 games. I think the Buccaneers realize they can't run Fournette so heavily in the ground. Now, he got a lot of touches last week, but they're going to function through that running back game with the passing and the running. White's going to be a part of this, and he's doing well. So, yes, you can play him right now. Again, as a flex level player, if you're desperate at running back too, he might be able to hit you in a pinch there. All right. And then finally, last point of the day, the superstars. Now, this obviously, again, these players are players you're already starting every week, but I just want to give you a little added insight, maybe for DFS, right? So Josh Allen, at least 300 yards in 3 of his last 4 games, rushed for 42 in his last few games. Josh Allen is just like supernova. Don't need me to tell you that, right? And then Mahomes, who started out a little bit, slowly in week 2 and 3, had a good week 1, and he had 3 touchdowns in week 2 and 3 combined, 7 touchdowns in his last 2 games. So he and Josh Allen, they're playing at the supernova level right now. DFS, you might want to pay up for those guys. Nick Chubb scored in 4 straight games, Oh my gosh, 7 touchdowns on the season. He's rushed for at least 113 yards in each of his last 3 games, and he's only had more than 20 carries once. He is playing at one of the best levels I've seen a running back play. Even though teams know they want to run the ball, good luck stopping Nick Chubb. And then Mike Williams. So he has at least 100 yards in 3 of his last 4 games. And the one game he didn't, he caught 1 pass. Fortunately, it was a 15-yard touchdown, but we know the drill here. Mike Williams, when they use him, he's going to produce. And then there are going to be weeks where they just don't throw him the ball. And so you just have to live with that. You have to take the good with the bad with him. But his upside has been very, very strong. And then if Marquise Brown, double-digit targets each of his last 4 games. Now, it could go down a little bit when DeAndre Hopkins comes back in 2 weeks, but Marquise Brown, I think, has already established himself as a big playmaker in this offense, and I don't know how much Kyler Murray's going to go away from him, and I think there's room for both he and Hopkins to do well. All right, before I get to questions, if you're watching on YouTube, please smash the like and subscribe buttons. I really appreciate that. If you like our content, we get you a couple days free behind the paywall at Rotowire. You don't even need a credit card, just an email address. Go to rotowire.com/try. Give us a shot. Hopefully you like what we have to offer. All right, let's get to some questions here. So let's see, we'll go way to the top here. We got a good number today. I'm glad everybody's here. All right. Struggling with running backs this year. You have Swift injured. He'll be back after the week 6 bye. Barkley's your RB1. You have no subs, low on the waiver order. I don't believe you'll be getting Walker the third. Players I mentioned in the show. See who I all mentioned here. Let me go back here. Mostert's probably claimed somewhere. It's possible here. Rashad White you could use. That would be one. I think who else you could use here. See, those are the ones that really stand out. Joshua Kelly, you're really stuck. Joshua Kelly might get another big usage game, so that could be useful. So those are some players that you might be able to work with here. All right. Brian Robinson, Pacheco aren't bad pickups. Yeah, Robinson had 9 carries last week. I mean, obviously it's his first game back after his unfortunate, senseless shooting incident where the poor man got shot. But obviously he's going to take a little time to work back in. And Gibson was relegated to 3 carries, so Robinson's not a bad pick. Pacheco, that scares me because remember we had that one game last week where they wanted to come out and surprise Tampa, and they ran him. He had 1 carry for 0 yards yesterday. He played 3% of the snaps, and he's been less than 10% of the snaps in 4 or 5 games. 3 of the last 4 for sure. So he had that one game where he played and then everybody got excited, probably started him and they got to 0 yards. Thank you very much. So look, Pacheco, I get it. Andy Reid said, he runs hard. He runs fast. There's no nuance to his game. And eventually, and that's why Reid's not playing him because it'll work when it's surprise mode. But until he learns how to be a polished NFL runner, you can't run at one speed in the NFL. It becomes problematic. All right. Eno Benjamin. Yes, Eno Benjamin may get a lot of run this week. Connor has the ribs injury. We don't know if he's playing. Darrell Williams hurt a knee late in the game. Benjamin will get volume, that's for sure. And he has the possibility of doing something. And he's shown some ability in the red zone to cash in. All right. Well, don't waste a waiver pick. Yeah, don't waste a waiver pick. Let him clear waivers. Pick him up on free agency tomorrow. So, yeah, definitely. Some of the players I mentioned, like Dameon Pierce, you might want a waiver pick on. But, no, just wait till waivers clears and sign the player that way. That's easy. All right, next one. Where does he Kenneth Walker? I have him as my running back 17. The running game hasn't been dynamic, and I know he had the big run. I get that. And Penny had the big game last week. But before that, they were kind of like stuck in. They had a couple of easy matchups. They played Detroit. And then, like I said, the big run against New Orleans, that isn't typical. I think running back 17 is fair. DJ Dallas is going to play on passing downs. And so I think Walker is going to be like a 2-down player, but he'll get red zone work. I think he'll have them spike weeks. I mean, he's a guy you're starting every week for sure. But I don't know that he's a running back 1. I mean, it could be because I almost think that if he was the real phenomenal deal, I think he would have got more work earlier from Rashad Penny before Penny blew up. But he's solid. He's strong. I think he's great. Running back 2. There's nothing wrong with that. Maybe he plays a little better than that. All right. Swift and Barkley back. Yeah. So, yeah, Swift will be back next week. So you're good there. No, don't waste that waiver pick. Like I said, pick up somebody out on free agency. Traded Mostert for Geno Smith. Your other quarterback is Hurts. There you have it. You got to take advantage of those opportunities. Should I trade Hurts for Diggs? Backup quarterback is Wentz. So if you have Hurts, you want to keep Hurts. Wentz, will have implosion games. If he has a number of them, and if they start losing, I know they don't, they really don't have many other options, Taylor Heineke, but it's not out of the realm. Teams get tired of Carson Wentz in his game. If he starts making mistakes and throwing the ball over the yard when he gets nervous, he could lose his job. So I think that's a risky trade, because in the week you need Wentz is the week he's going to throw you for 125 yards, 4 interceptions, and no touchdowns, and then the fantasy season's over. So I do get trading quarterback depth. I just don't know if Wentz is the guy I want to run with. I consider him a top 20 quarterback, and that's about it. He'll have weeks where he's a top 5 guy, but the floor weeks are just unpalatable. All right, Hurts guarantee. Yep. Diggs. Yep. All right, let's see what else you got. You're welcome. You're very welcome. All right, smart. All right, trade Gabriel Davis for Kenneth Walker. So Gabriel Davis, I made mentions of this. I was concerned last week when people asked me, "Is our Gabriel Davis?" I told them no, because he had a re-aggravation of his ankle. This is week 4, okay? He had a re-aggravation of that ankle injury, and he ended up doing nothing. He wasn't right for that game. He was off the injury report in week 5. And yeah, he's not going to get to 98 and a 65-yard touchdown every week. We get that. But he is a big play receiver with Josh Allen. Josh Allen is playing, like I said, a supernova level. He's the receiver 2 in that offense. He is going to get targets. He's going to get red zone looks, and he's going to have big plays. Gabe Davis is a strong wide receiver 2 the rest of the way. And like I said, Justin Jefferson's had bad games. So we understand this. Jamar Chase has had bad games. So when Gabriel Davis is a bad game or 2, we can't just say, oh, well, he's terrible. But now, if you need a running back, you might have to do it. That might be the price you have to pay for a starting running back. And so in that premise, if you need the running back, then yes. If the running back is a luxury, then I'm keeping Gabriel Davis. All right. Dobbins at the Giants or Singletary at the Chiefs. Singletary's been seeing passing game action in shootout games. And so this could be a shootout game. And Singletary had a 9-catch game recently. Dobbins still doesn't have the elite usage, and he may not get that. He didn't have that as a rookie. So, but Singletary, it's weird how sometimes he just fades off. But right now, I think his floor is probably equivalent with Dobbins. But I think, and I know Dobbins has a multi-touchdown game. Man, I get that. He had that rain game and he scored multiple times. I tend to think that the game is going to be much higher scoring between Kansas City and Buffalo. So I would rather have him in that Singletary in that game, whereas that New York Baltimore game, it could go a lot of ways. But I think both teams would prefer to play it conservatively on offense. I don't think they're going to push the defenses. So that game could end up as your 20-17 special, and then that would knock down Dobbins' upside. I would give Singletary a 52 to 48% edge, which is basically saying if you have a gut feel, go with it. All right, next question. Trade away Kenneth Walker for Hopkins. Here's the only, and you have McCaffrey, so you have plenty of depth. You have 3 depth, so you're trading from depth. And yes, it'd be nice. Now, here's what I want to point out about DeAndre Hopkins. DeAndre Hopkins, before the knee injury last year, was showing signs of slowing down. He was not looking great. Now, maybe it was a short-term blip. Maybe with Marquise Brown on the field, maybe he sees less attention and maybe he's okay. But he wasn't, not that he's been a big separation guy in his career, but he seemed to be getting less and less of that. And there were a lot of bad games in there. So I'm not completely convinced that we're getting in his prime DeAndre Hopkins. I think we're getting later career DeAndre Hopkins. But that said, I think the name Hopkins makes it sound better than it is. I think Walker is more valuable. But if you don't need the running back, the receiver ad makes it better. I would ask for Hopkins and something else. I would ask him and I would point out to the person that has Hopkins that Hopkins did struggle. So you're saying I'm taking a little bit of a risk here, and I'd like something else. That's what I would do. All right. Traded A.J. Brown and Monty for Diggs. Did you win? Brown hasn't had the upside games. Even in this first game when he had big yards, he didn't score. So as of right now, it's a trade. It's a tie because the one person gets a good, strong receiver in Brown, gets a starting running back who's an RB2. You get an elite receiver. It's a wash. Both teams should win. Both teams should win that deal. Romeo Doubs. So he got targets last week. I'm not worried about him. It was a weird game. It was a very weird game for the Packers. But and Randall Cobb got this ridiculous 13 targets. It was like the game, like Rodgers was almost like, we're going on vacation in England. I'm throwing to my buddy. Let my old buddy Randall Cobb have one big fling on international. I don't know what it was. But throwing to Randall Cobb 13 times at his age, that's a recipe for a loss, and they lost the game. Romeo Doubs is a part of that offense. His snap share is incredibly high. It's over 85%. So Romeo Doubs should be a wide receiver 3 with upside. Because if he's getting those 8 targets most games from Aaron Rodgers, that works out more than it doesn't. All right, let's see what we got here. Do you empty your waiver for Walker? Yes. Gordon, Pierce, yeah, can't trust Gordon. Etienne, we think he's starting to break out. We hope, but maybe James Robinson doesn't go away. So yes, you do empty your waiver budget because it gives you you're probably your highest balance of floor and ceiling, and you're instantly starting him. So yes, you do empty it. You get him for 2/3 of a season. So that's why you do that. All right, let's see. All right, Randy. Well, it really just confirmed what was going on, Randy. It's basically been MVS is getting 5 to 8 catches, and he's getting like 40 to 75 yards. And Juju's terrible. He's getting 8 targets a game, but he's not doing anything with it. 3 of his last 4 games, I want to say, his yardage is like less than 40. So he's just not getting it done. So I think that's what it is. And Hardman kind of popped in with a little bit, but I think that's not sustainable. So I think it's pretty much what we've been seeing. I think we know that Valdes-Scantling is more reliable than Juju right now. Juju is like a floor guy, and they're both kind of floor guys. Neither has really shown much of a ceiling, and I don't know that's going to change. All right, let's see what else we got here. We got the next one. Trade Fournette, Davis, and Stevenson for Rodgers, Adams, and Walker. I think the Fournette, Stevenson, and Davis side is giving up too much. I'm still worried about Devontae had a great game. He had 3 catches. He had like 7 targets. I still think Josh McDaniels isn't using him enough. And I think Fournette's going to keep getting the ball as a runner and receiver. I mean, he's going to be a running back 1 the rest of the way. And Stevenson, Damian Harris going to miss multiple weeks with a hamstring. So I think that we're looking at Stevenson as being running back 1 as well for the next month. And at that point, if he plays that well, I mean, I don't know, is Belichick to go right back to Harris, or does he see that Stevenson can win in every area of the field? He may. And then Davis, like I said, I mentioned earlier in the show, his ankle injury cost him the 2 bad games. I think he won't have a great game every week, but I think he's strong receiver too. I like that trio on the deal. Randy Sanders moving forward, non-PPR. So first of all, we got to throw out the 27 carry game that he had against the Jaguars, because that game was played in horrible weather, and he doesn't have any other usage like that. He's like, he's like a 17, 18 carry guy game, and he's like a 40 to 90 yard guy, which is very, very good. And he'll score some touchdowns, and he is used on some passing downs, and they're using him in the red zone. So he's a very, very strong running back. He's probably right about running in not where he's scoring now, but the rest of the season, I put him reliably, maybe running back 18 to 20, which is very strong. He has upside weeks for better than that. And, so I think he's going to be very strong, but, I think his value right now is higher than it should be. And that's good. I think selling him, because people are going to remember that 27 carry game. They're not going to put context on it most of the time. And trading for him, if you need, what you're getting from him. You're getting, running back 20. That's what you're getting, and that's what you need. Then you trade for it, right? Ross, let's see. Should you trade Devontae Adams? Depends what you're getting for him, right? I mean, like I just said a minute ago, I don't like how Josh McDaniels is using him, but you look at his numbers. Look at his numbers right now, and like multiply them by 3, and that's a little less than what his season numbers are going to be, and that's pretty good. I don't know what you're going to get that would be, better. You'd have to get a heck of a deal, I still would think, especially coming off that Monday night game where let's reframe that question. Is he going to get suspended, right? I have no idea what the league's going to do. Could the league go personal conduct policy and put him out 6 games? I don't know. Could they? They could. Or could they just knock him out a couple games? So if you want to trade him on that premise, yeah, I think so. If you're going to be without him and you need him for the playoffs, I mean, you need the wins in the short term for the playoffs, you might trade him. Man, if they do a personal conduct policy, I don't know if they will, but they could. And that would be a smart trade. Raheem Mostert is a must start until he breaks apart. I don't know when that'll be. It's going to be in the middle of a game somewhere. It's not going to be during the practice week. He will break down. It might be in 3 weeks. It might be tomorrow or Monday or Sunday, I should say. It might be in week 10. But he cannot handle throughout his career this level of usage. And he's returning kicks too. But you start him. It's definitely start him. I recommended him in DFS last week. That ended up working out nicely. And last question. More Pickens. And you know what? I am still rounding out week 2 and doing waivers for everybody, unless I have the opponents next to them. You can ask me that tomorrow. Come on the stream tomorrow. And I'll get into the matchups a little bit more tomorrow. I'm still looking back on week 5, not as much into week 6 yet. All right, everybody. Thanks for hanging with me. And remember, follow me at Jim Coventry NFL. And if you enjoyed this, please smash the like and subscribe button if you're on YouTube. Have a great day, everyone.